Maria von Kerkhoff, our technical lead for COVID-19. We have also Dr. Bente Nicholson, Director of
Around the world is discussing today. I think the first thing to remind ourselves is that vaccines are life-saving interventions. And if you think about diseases like smallpox, like polio, like measles, that used to kill hundreds of thousands and maim millions of people around the world, it's thanks to vaccines that we don't see those diseases today. So we've forgotten what smallpox is like. We've forgotten what polio is like. We've forgotten how measles kills, used to kill millions of children, still does kill hundreds of thousands of children, unfortunately, around the world, despite the fact we do have a very safe and effective vaccine for measles. So we have to put in perspective, vaccines and what they've done for humanity when we start thinking about COVID vaccines. We're at an early stage of development. No doubt that there's been an unprecedented speed of development of COVID vaccines. We've never seen anything like this before, and that's because of advances in science and technology, and also the fact that there are now platforms that have been developed because of investments in the last several years, which make it possible for companies and academic groups to just take the new virus sequence and put it onto an existing platform, which has already been tried and tested for other diseases. And this is part of the reason why we had a phase 1 trial of one particular vaccine 66 days after the first genetic sequence of this new coronavirus was made public. Now, having said that, vaccines still need to go through phases of testing. They need to go through lab testing, followed by animal studies, followed by human trials, starting with very small numbers of people to test safety, moving on to what we call immunogenicity studies, where we look for the development of protective antibodies and other immune responses, which we think are signals. But eventually you need phase 3 trials, which actually look at reduction of disease in the group that's vaccinated compared to the group that's not given the vaccine or is given a placebo. And this happens in tens of thousands of people who are also followed for safety signals. So no vaccine is going to be mass deployed before the regulators are confident and the governments are confident, and that WHO is confident that these vaccines have met the minimum standards of efficacy and safety. We have a very elaborate and thorough process where we look at all the criteria, the qualities of a vaccine, and whether they have been met before we will make any kind of recommendations, either on emergency use authorization or on a general licensing or authorization for use through pre-qualification programs. We have an independent group of experts, the SAGE, the Scientific Advisory Group of Experts on Immunization, that makes recommendations. Again, it's a globally recognized independent group of experts that will look at the properties of an individual vaccine and the data from the trials before they'll make a policy recommendation. So I think we should reassure the public that vaccines that are recommended for use by WHO and by the national regulatory authorities would have passed the minimum standards needed. We've also heard very encouraging statements from a number of the vaccine developers and the heads of those manufacturing companies that they will abide by the standard guidelines and rules for development of vaccines. So there needs to be, I think the questions that people are posing means that there is a need for more information sharing. There's a need for more transparency, for more education of the public on vaccines in general, and then on COVID vaccines in particular. Thanks.
Can I add?
Yeah, Dr. Tedros, please.
Thank you, Fadila. I think Soumya had said it all. Just want to stress a bit. I would like to assure the public that WHO will not endorse a vaccine that's not effective and safe. So that's one. And second, as she had said, vaccines have helped in eradicating smallpox. Then almost on the verge of eradicating polio. But I would like to remind the world how we used vaccines to defeat Ebola in northern Kivu, eastern DRC, where the Ebola outbreak situation was very much complicated due to security. As you know, North Kivu is a place where more than 20 armed groups actually operate, and it's with the help of vaccines that we were able to stop or end the Ebola epidemic in northern Kivu in eastern DRC. So, for people to understand the power of vaccines, it's better to see it's the track record of many of the vaccines we used in the past several decades and even in the recent past, as I said, in eastern DRC. So going forward, vaccines on COVID-19, we have a good number of promising ones. They will only be used when they're found to be effective and safe. That's what I would like to assure the world. And as Soumya said, this will be done by WHO and local authorities. As to the anti-vax movement, they can build narratives to fight against vaccines, but the track record of vaccines tells its own story. And people should not be confused by a movement, anti-vax movement, but they can have a look for themselves on how the world actually used vaccines to reduce under 5 mortality, to save children, and to have successful eradication of diseases like smallpox. So just please go to the track record of vaccines and have a look for yourselves, especially parents. Have a look for yourselves and see how vaccines actually change the world. And that's why we have this famous saying, vaccines actually affect adults. Our children will be healthy adults when we use vaccines. And for COVID, we are hopeful that we will have one so that the world can get back to normal. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tedros. We will move now to Simon Ateba from Today News Africa. Simon, can you hear me? Simon? Second attempt.
Yes, I can hear you.
Simon, we can hear you.
Yes,
please go ahead.
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you for taking my question. This is Simon Ateba from Today News Africa in Washington, D.C. Yesterday, WHO Africa said virtually all African countries, all 54 or 55 African countries, have expressed interest in COVAX, the groundbreaking initiative to provide almost 220 million doses of vaccine to Africa. I would like WHO to give us an update on what the next step is and what will be the contribution of each African country to take part in COVAX. And also to ask WHO if 220 million doses of vaccine for a continent that has 1.2 billion people is enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. We will start with Dr. Bruce Aylward. Bruce.
Thank you, Simon, and thank you for emphasizing the importance of the landmarks that we passed this week in the battle against COVID and getting our ACT accelerator up and operating. As you highlighted, this week we passed the landmark by the 31st of August. We were asking countries to confirm their intention to participate in the COVAX facility, and as the Director General highlighted, we were delighted to hear that 78 high and upper middle income countries will be joining with the 92 countries of Gavi and